Because last time I was here, we kind of had a little bit of a breakthrough. I did a little bit just of understanding that I probably can talk it out, walk it out, more than I can book it out, so to speak.
Right.
You know,
right.
books. I mean, I'm better at books and what have you than I used to be. But
Right.
I'm more of now that I have more understanding of how to utilize what I've learned in a book. That's helped immensely too. So what I thought maybe what we consider doing today is just maybe, you know, I kind of like the idea of getting out some of your skeleton. And last time we were here, we talked about, you know, when you do hip movement, is it actually the femur that's doing, you know, what is the true hip joint? Excuse me. We kind of talked about that. And why that's important, because in certain exercises it may be nice to know, do we need to stay in a pelvic tilt? You know, are we moving, you know, what are we emphasizing with that hip joint?
Right.
What's actually what needs to happen?
What's happening at the hip joint?
Yeah, yeah, and an area that I'd like to explore a little bit more of is you know, firing glutes, because there's this myth out there, the only way to fire glutes is to do squats, and I don't believe that's obviously not true.
Right.
But maybe looking at the hip again, and then picking an exercise.
Okay.
Maybe showing, you know, clients the best way to utilize an exercise based on the muscle striation and how to set up something.
So here we are. So, you know, and not everybody would agree with me on this, because I got in kind of a debate with a guy one time about this. And he said that the name, and I did look it up in joint structure and function, and the name of what I was talking about is reverse hip flexion or something like that.
Yeah, something. I've looked it up.
But to me, it's just real, it's easier for me to look at it like this, okay? And this is how I look at it. So if I took this apart and I took this apart, right? So these two things were together, and then I pull them apart. Where's the hip?
Good question. That to be
right, and then the word even brings that home, right? Because we're talking about hip joint, right? So that's what we're actually looking at, is where two things join together, right? So we take them apart and we don't have a hip. Put them together, we have a hip, and then we can talk about it in a different way, because sometimes the way we talk about it kind of limits how we can see it, right? So if I'm looking at there's two things going on here, I can have a pelvis moving at the hip, right? See that? And then I can have a femur moving at the hip. You see that? So then that allows me to look at what's going on. What do I want to move? What do I want to put against load? What do I want to, you know, stabilize? All of those things I can start to see, because there's two things going on. It's not just one thing. And most people see it geographically as the hip is like this whole location, but if you can get it down to this, then it makes a big difference. And it makes a big difference for clients too, because a lot of times, you know, they don't have a clue about, you know, what's going on.
Absolutely.
You know? And I think being able to kind of see it in your mind then makes a difference in how you're able to use your body. You know, and that's why I've come up with a new thing, you know, hack your brain to train your body. You know, get in there and see what's going on. Use your brain to see what's going on, and then boom, go down in there and move your body in the way you want to move it.
Well, and then there's another point to that too, John. I think that's a great point. The other thing that you want to think about is the amygdala in the brain. So if you've got a joint discomfort,
right,
you know, and you're doing an exercise and it triggers that joint discomfort, two things happen. The person's going to shut down and get in fight or flight, so they may not want to execute the exercise correctly. But sometimes when we go in here and we look at the joint and show them, here's our disarticulated hip joint, so it's not really a joint when they're apart, but when you join them together, hence name the joint, then it gives that client a more of that in look to say, hey, we hear, so maybe when they're doing the exercise, and we can take that and say, so what I'm seeing and hearing and what you're telling me is when you're in this position, that's when you're having some hip discomfort. So that may get the client at that in look at another level to start hacking that brain like you called it.
The bottom line.
Absolutely.
What has to happen for anything to happen? Right?
Yep.
That's the question I'm asking. It's kind of like, what has to happen for X to happen?
Exactly.
Okay? All right, so we talk about like pelvic tilt and all that kind of stuff. So, and you know, so the pelvis could be tilted to the front, right? We kind of look at it like here's a bucket, and so like you could tilt the pelvis to the front, you could tilt the pelvis to the back, you could tilt the pelvis to the side, tilt the pelvis to the other side. I mean, there's all those kind of things, and you can see it on the human body, you know. So here's a pelvic tilt to the front, here's one to the back, you know. here's one to the, what is that, left side, here's one to the right side. So there's all these things, and people would, it's a common word, pelvic tilt. But what has to happen in order for that thing to happen? Can this tilt without anything else happening?
Well, you got to get the brain involved. You got to.
Right, but I mean, let's just go body first.
Okay.
What has to happen for this to move?
We've got to activate some muscle.
Right, but I mean, let's just get even more specific. Just bone.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Right.
Your hip has to be able to articulate around your femur.
Okay, so that we're going to have that, right?
Yep.
But what if this doesn't happen, then nothing else is going to happen when we talk about pelvic tilt. What is that? What is that thing?
I would think how well your joints articulate around each other.
Right, but there's, okay, so I've been asking you this question, kind of get some curiosity going, right?
Absolutely.
So here's the thing to think about. In order for this to move, my spine has to move.
Oh, yeah, I got you. Okay.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Okay, now, yeah, we might use our abs to do that,
Sure.
some obliques, you know, some, what do we call it, the quadratus,
all that.
Okay,
yeah, sure.
So, but my spine has to move in order for that to happen,
Absolutely.
right?
Yes.
So if I'm doing what we call an anterior pelvic tilt, right? So that, like, let's say, for example, the pelvis was going to go this way, then my spine, if you look at me right here, my spine would have to go into extension, right?
Extension.
If I'm going to do pelvic tilt to the rear, what would you call that? Posterior pelvic tilt. Then I'm going to have, you know, lumbar flexion, right? If I'm going to do it this side, I'm going to have lateral flexion over here, and then lateral flexion over there. So it's all about the spine moving.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line of all this pelvic. That's why I say the words sometimes can just stop us, because then we're just looking at the pelvis, and we don't go like, bam, one step back, and then, oh, okay, if that doesn't move, then none of it moves. All right, and then that makes it real clear in my mind about, okay, so what are we doing? You know, and what do we want to do?
Exactly.
Okay, for a given exercise, if we're looking at just isolating and focusing on the hip.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah. Because they may have a limitation in their spine. They may
Right.
have, you know, they may not be able to do flexion and extension of the lumbar
Right,
area.
right. And that gets us to that whole idea that I think, you know, Purvis would talk about, where the name of an exercise, you know, we got the name of an exercise and we got some rules for how to do it.
Yes.
And like, for example, if we were going to do like a hip extension, right, or people would commonly call it the bridge, most people would say, well, all you got to do is you're going to have to do some kind of, you know, tilt your pelvis and then lift your body.
Yes.
Well, what are we really doing when we say that to that person? We're saying, oh, do we want to introduce lumbar flexion into that bridge?
Exactly.
Or do we want to keep the lumbar neutral and then use your quads and your glutes to like you were saying, to fire that glute more? What's going to do more for the glutes? And I'll give you an example of that.
Sure. You want to jump on?
I'll do it, and then you can kind of watch, and then you can do it and get to see how it feels.
Yep.
Okay, so if I'm here, right,
Yep.
and you want me to work my
Let's say
glutes,
Yep.
quads, and want to emphasize hip flexion, right? Okay. So let's say I'm going to do that, and you tell me, you know, to tilt my pelvis, right? Okay. So I guess if I tilt my pelvis and just leave it there, so I'm in spinal flexion with that, right? Question is, do I want to do that? What's happening to the disc when I do that?
That's right.
Okay, you know, so right off the bat we know that, okay, if the spine is flexed like this, then there's going to be some disc pressure going out that way.
Yep.
Do we really want that for this exercise? I mean, what's that all about?
You're right.
Right? Or you might tell me to use the pelvic tilt in the movement, right? So if I start doing this, right, you see that? Now, am I really going to get my glutes in? Because look, my glutes are going to come in way up here instead of getting them down here at the bottom. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So if you just watch me right here, and I press, like I can really turn that glute on. I'll show it to you on this side. Can you see that, Tim? Okay, so the glutes are really on. Or if I just do the pelvic tilt as part of the exercise, then it's like a roll up. Glutes don't come in until here. So I have all this motion at the hip without any glute involvement, because I used this, quote, pelvic tilt to lift myself up, which was really spinal flexion.
Yes, that's right. So it would be really more of a spinal flexion exercise.
Yeah, or something for your abdominals.
That's right, possibly.
You see that?
Yep, yep.
Because the abdominals are attached to your pubis bone,
right.
so in order to flex my spine, what did I have to do?
You had to bring your hips towards that.
I just had to flex my spine. I had to
That's
pull
what
the
I
pubis
saw,
bone up,
Yep.
right? And then
Yes.
now I'm
Yep.
going.
Yep.
See that? And so then, do I want a spinal glute quad movement? Or am I just wanting a glute quad movement?
And again, too, I think it goes back to, like we said earlier, your who. Not everyone can possibly perform that exercise. You know, just again, we have to know.
Right. This is one of the things I want to show. I didn't get to show. I'm going to show the camera first, and then I'll show it to you. So here we are. Here's the spine. I mean the vertebrae. And so here again, if I'm flexing my spine before I'm extending my hip, then I'm more likely to kind of get those two vertebrae, or 4 and 5 probably down there, to start pinching together on this end and then pushing on the nucleus out the back. Can you see that?
Yep, that's exactly right.
And so that's the thing that I want to ask. I mean, is that who do we want to do that for? Is it worth it? You know, or do we just want to keep a neutral spine? Because we're really after hips. Right, and we want to get, and what does that mean? Probably quads and glutes and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yep. Feel like there's something.
But okay, so who would be a who that you would want to do that with? That's what I would.
Exactly. Again, you have to know your clients.
Right, but so let's throw out some clients. Okay. Yeah, who would be a who that I want to introduce lumbar flexion into a hip extension for a bridge?
Well, I think it would be the client who you've demonstrated how to effectively do those movements and see where their threshold is.
Right.
Either
see,
something
because the deal is I'm not as loving about that as you. I'm going to just say it straight up. I don't know anybody that I want to do that to. If my focus is on quad and glute.
Exactly.
Right. I'm going to go out on a limb. Maybe I'm going to be looked upon as
I doubt it, because I would not perform what you showed me, because I think I don't really like the spine being flexed in that position with load, and then gravity to contend.